Okay, this is a portrait that I did of a guy who was the dean of GW Law School. And when I first spoke to him, he said to me, they want me to get my portrait painted. I guess I'll do it because they want me to, but I don't want a boring, stodgy portrait. And that's why I chose you, because of everybody that showed me, you're the only one whose faces have some animation to them. The people look like they're alive. They don't look like they're these stodgy old people covered in dust. And that's what I want. I don't like stodgy old people covered in dust. And I said, well, I'm your man. I'm trying to create portraits that feel alive and exciting and relevant in the 21st century, and the kind of portraits that get people who don't go to portrait museums excited about art. And this was another collaboration that I really enjoyed. I think of portraits as collaborations because, I need to learn as much about the person and incorporate as many of their ideas as possible. This is the kind of color study sometimes I do if I'm going to do a larger painting in my studio. This is a portrait of Ike Skelton. He was the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, and just a great old gentleman and a great patriot and a fascinating person, and I want to say an amateur, but really a historian, and just an interesting person to get to know. This is a portrait that I painted recently of the nieces of the woman who commissioned it, who has become a good friend. She took my classes, and then we've gotten to be friends over the years. And I really love the idea of depicting them in their garden. This is the type of demonstration I do in class, just to help my students learn how to paint and how to draw and what the process is. This is a portrait of a wonderful woman. She's a doctor at Georgetown University Medical School. And she and I hit it off like gangbusters and got to be great friends. I take great pride in having painted so far the first two women whose portraits have been painted for Georgetown Medical School. At a certain point, they looked around and they said, there's 87 portraits of guys and no portraits of women. What are we going to do about this? And I was thrilled that they asked me to do it. And the first woman whose portrait I painted had died a few years ago. So I didn't get a chance to get to know her, but I did get a chance to get to know Dr. Miriam Toporovich. And she and I got to be great friends, and I really enjoyed the process of working with her on this. Like I said, I love painting cityscapes and investigating color and light and composition. And this is one I recently finished, again, from my sketches in Italy. This one is too, I did this a few years ago. I was particularly happy with the way this one turned out. I really changed around a lot of things. And this was really exciting for me to kind of see how much I could change and keep the basic idea. This is a portrait that I painted for a museum in Palm Beach. When I finished it, the husband had died, but the woman who was, the painting was going up in this museum, she said, all the things that you want to hear as a portrait artist. She really liked the painting and everything like that, and that meant a lot. But she said, would you mind changing the color of the rings? You didn't quite get them right. And I said, no, I'd be happy to. It's no problem. And it seemed a little incongruous that this sort of conservative looking gentleman would be wearing these pinky rings. And the whole time through painting it, I kind of was thinking, what on earth are those doing there? They don't quite make sense. And when she said, would you mind changing the color of the rings? She said, his name is Fitz. She said, it's important we get those right. Fitz's grandfather passed those over the bow of the Titanic to his mom when he was getting into a lifeboat, and they've been in the family ever since, and we really want to get the color of those right. And I thought, yeah, I'd be happy to tint the color a little bit. That's a great story. We don't want to get that wrong. This is Senator Harry Reid. It's his Senate Majority Leader portrait, which hangs in the US Capitol. And I loved working with Senator Reid on this. He was very generous with his time. He gave me 8 Sundays in the US Capitol to work with him in his office. And I did a lot of it from photos, but I did a lot of it from life. And getting to spend 8 2-hour sessions with this incredibly fascinating person was great. He would watch baseball and I would paint, but I'd ask him political questions and I'd ask him about his life. This is a guy who grew up in a tin shack without indoor plumbing and had to hitchhike 20 years to go to high school, stay there during the week, and then hitchhike home on the weekends. He's a guy who boxed his way through college and worked his way through law school as a policeman, a Capitol policeman. His dad killed himself. He was a minor. He's about the most interesting person I've ever met in my entire life. And so being able to spend that much time with him and then obviously do the portrait and have it hanging in the United States Capitol where my kids will be able to go see it one day really meant a lot to me. This is a portrait. It's a portrait of London. I love London. This is Paris. Wherever I go, much to the chagrin of my wife, I'm always just wandering around with sketchbook and camera. And this is Capitol Hill. I love the historical feel of Capitol Hill. This is just a house in McLean that's not far from my house, but I'll go there and paint. So I do as much plein air painting as possible. I just painted this from life out there. I'll just show you a couple more, and then because I didn't know how many to bring, but here's a painting I recently finished. This is up at Principal Gallery. This is of New York. Another cityscape. This is one that I was really happy with. I like setting up problems for myself and trying to solve them. The problem of glorious late afternoon sunlight up against, shadows and twilight. The sun has set on Earth, but it hasn't set in the sky yet. And I thought that would be an interesting problem to try to solve. This is an intersection in Charleston. I go down to Charleston to paint from time to time. And it's an intersection down there that I've painted over and over again. And they'll continue to paint over and over again. Here's another painting of that same intersection, and that's that same house. I had done this maybe 4 or 5 years before the previous one. I painted that from life in Italy. It's another painting of New York. I love, any type of juxtaposition between the historical feel of some of these older cities and modern day life, I think is really fascinating. That's another one I painted from life of that same house. This should be up in Principal Gallery. It's funny, this field, it's 2 minutes away from where I used to live. It's now 5 minutes away from my house, but it also feels like a million miles away. And just another of the type of cityscapes that I really love. I'm always encouraging my students to change as many things as possible. In the actual scene of this is near Soho in Manhattan. There was an advertisement down here, but it was the wrong color and it was all jumbled up and it was all this tech stuff and it looked like this big just conglomeration of nothing. So I thought, I can't have that. It'll be confusing and it'll make the painting worse instead of better. What do I need? Well, I guess I need a big advertisement in orange because that color doesn't make any sense here. So I want something that'll kind of pop right out and that'll feel a little bit jarring. And what'll it be? Sophia Loren. We'll throw Sophia Loren in there. Why not? This is the type of work that I do. I love painting portraits. I love painting cities and landscapes. And today I'm going to set up and do a charcoal portrait. Let me actually, let me pull up the image that I'll be using. I should have it here, but I don't. So hang on a second. Here we go. So this is by Pietro Annigoni, who was a 20th century Italian artist. He is, let me see if I can get this right, my artistic great-grandfather. He was one of those painters in the mid-20th century who painted many portraits of the great and the good. You know, he has a great portrait of Queen Elizabeth in London, and he painted her jet-setting sister, Princess Margaret, and he painted people like that. And he also taught Nelson Shanks, who taught my teacher, Danny Dawson. So he is my artistic great-grandfather. And if any of you have studied with me at any point or plan to, he will be your artistic great-great-grandfather. So I'm going to set the camera up on my paper. I'll show you my materials, and then I'll just show you how to deal with faces and portraits. So give me just 1 second here.
I just want to let everybody know I sent that portrait out to everyone, you know.
Okay, everybody. I am just getting my act together here. 1 second. So this is a self-portrait by Annigoni. Here's an artist at the height of his powers, and he's taken the time to do a self-portrait for a couple of reasons. One, let me just move this a little bit. Yeah, here we go. All right. So I'll spotlight this video. Then I'll encourage you all to, yeah, you guys are all being good citizens. You've all got your cameras turned off. Annigoni loved painting people, and it's not that easy to get models. Certainly not models who always listen and do what you say. So, but he's always around. So self-portraits are great for practice. They're great if you like doing portraits and people. I highly encourage you all to do some self-portraits and really do as many self-portraits as possible. They're really, really good practice. Okay, so I'm working on, I actually don't know what kind of paper this is. Somebody gave me a whole just stack of it. And it's very, very smooth. And I'm going to be working with vine charcoal. And vine charcoal goes on really easily and comes off really easily. You know, and I'm going to be using vine charcoal. I might use compressed charcoal at a certain point, and a kneaded eraser. So let's get started. I'll talk my way through this, and then we'll spend 15 minutes at the end, and you all can ask questions. So I'll explain what I'm doing. I think, Padma, just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. We'll go until 2:45 on this, and then we'll do questions for 15 minutes.
Yes, Gavin, that would work perfectly.
Excellent. Okay. So when you're doing anything, but certainly a portrait, the first thing you want to do, you don't want to just start with the details. First thing you want to do is just kind of figure out how big you want your work to be. Now, what am I doing? How big do I want this thing? Does this seem like the size that I want it to be? I should make it about, you know, you don't just go cruising right through it. You go, does this work for me? Can I live with this? And then you start very generally, not telling yourself where things are, but telling yourself where things are going to be later. Here's his eyebrows, his eyes, his nose, his mouth. These are all more or less parallel. It's more or less where things are going to be. Put his chin about there. You want to solve big problems first and then solve little problems. When you draw, you just want to draw with angles and distances. You don't want to draw things. You just want to go, where is this in relation to that? I'm not drawing his eyes or his eyebrows. I'm just telling myself where I am going to draw it later. I'm taking the pressure off of myself to get everything right, because I'm not going to get everything right. I'm going to make lots of mistakes, and that's fine. You want to take for granted that you're going to be making a lot of mistakes. There's no other way to do it. When you see paintings or drawings by anybody, you know, Michelangelo, Sargent, all they do are correct mistakes. And that's good news, because if they get to make mistakes, then we get to make mistakes too. So the first thing you're doing is you're asking yourself where all of these landmarks are in relation to each other. If this is where the edge of his eye socket is, where's his nose? If this is the corner of his nose, well, let's see, let's work this out. If that's his lower eyelid, all of this is kind of in play. I get to make as many changes as I want until I get it right. We'll raise his eyebrows a little. When you're drawing, you want to draw as lightly as you possibly can in the beginning. You want to draw in such a way that you're able to erase anything all the time. Again, you're going to be making tons of mistakes, and you want to work in such a way that you can fix those mistakes. All right, let's see here. So here I am. And whoops. Okay, so if I'm telling myself that the corner of his nose is here, where's the corner of his mouth? Well, this shadow's about there. This angle is about there. And that little crease is beneath, I don't know, about there. You want to draw landmarks independently of each other. You don't want to go, okay, here's his mouth, and then draw his mouth in one fell swoop. You want to go, okay, that's the corner of his mouth. Now, let's see where this shadow just takes us right down here. There's that angle there. Okay, so I've just put these up independently of each other. That gives me twice as good a chance of getting his mouth right. If I put this all in based on one landmark, you know, I would have one chance, but I'm putting this in based on two landmarks. So now I have two chances to get it right. Okay, from the, let's see. So I'm telling myself that the tip of his nose is over here. That means that the edge of his cheek is right about where I have it there. That his cheek kind of bulges out on this side from about there. That we've got this little shape down here. I don't know what that is. I don't know if he just put his nose down too far in the beginning, because that doesn't quite make sense, but it's helpful because we can get from there to the corner of his mouth, which is about there. All right. From the edge of his jaw, it helps to have something straight hanging around so that I can just hold this up in line with the edge of his chin and see what part of the nose it falls directly beneath. So it is, the edge of his chin is directly beneath about, call it there. Okay, let's see. Let's come back up here. This eyebrow might have crept up a little too high. All right, where are we? All right, so we've got this little break in the nose right there. I find this to be, it's really like here. I find that to be a really key point. All of these landmarks up here, I can find based on kind of this point, right? So the bottom of his eye, it's really about there, where that lower eyelid is. It's just two angles for his eye itself. It's like that. Yeah, that's about right. Whenever you do one eye, you want to always do the other eye. You don't want to do one eye and then 25 minutes later go do the other eye. So let me just, now it's a little tough what's going on in here because his eyebrow is just getting lost in his hair. That's fine. That's fine. So it looks like his eyebrow is within reason. Within reason, it's around there. And then his hair is just a, you know, like a very dashing mess. Okay, so if I'm putting this eye here,
where are they in relation to each other? This is all really just shadow. So feel like that. Okay. I have a fair amount of work put in here. Let me just get rid of this. Sometimes it's easier if there's nothing in the way. So let me place his forehead with just nothing in the way here. So all right, we've got angles here are 1, 2. It's about there. 1, 2. And then it's about there, this hairline. Yeah, this is about here. This comes down about there. This might be too high. Okay. I'll worry about this stuff later. Right now, I'm just going to shade in the shadows. The shadows are very intact. So I'll just shade those shadows in and worry about the part on the right in a little bit. I'm actually going to use a longer piece of charcoal so I don't have to drag my hand across the page. Give me just 1 second. The main thing when you're drawing, remember, drawing is the hard part about painting. I came across a great quote. I can't remember who the artist is, but just a second here. Some artist that we've all heard of said, it takes 25 years to learn to draw and 1 hour to learn how to paint. So drawing is the hard part, and drawing is the best practice that we have. So when you're drawing, it's just important not to zero in on any of the details, but rather to treat things objectively. And right now, I'm just going to objectively shade in all the shadows. So I'm still not positive that I love this. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, so. Let's see if I kind of lost that lower eyelid. It's just important for proportions right now. So let me see if I can put that back in the right place. Yeah, so that'll be like here. I'll move this a little closer so you can really see what I'm doing. Okay, so here I am. Now, one of the keys to drawing is always trying to improve your drawing, by which I mean right now I'm shading in the shadows, but I'm also trying to take all these shapes and make them better. And when you start shading, this is key. When you start shading, you're just shading in one value. You're going, is the area in question light or is it shadow? You're not rendering. This is up too high. So it's helpful to take a step back from time to time. I usually look at my work in the mirror. It's really helpful to look at your work in the mirror. You can start seeing what all what problems you're having. It's getting a little bit wide on this side. So let's see if I can pull this together. Everybody makes the nose too long. When you're doing noses, go like this. Work your way from there to there. Don't try to draw this. Go from there to there. That's how you get the nose the right shape and the right size. It's creeping down too far. Says that. Better. All right. I have a rule in my classes that my students are not allowed to draw nostrils because nostrils are usually just part of the shadow. And in the beginning of the drawing or the painting or whatever you're doing, you don't want to differentiate one part of the shadow from another one. You just want to go, all this is shadow. Later, I'll worry about the little parts of the shadow. You know, some of the shadows lighter and some of the shadows darker. The time to worry about that is always later. It's never now. So no nostrils. If you adopt my no nostril policy, your drawings and your paintings will improve immediately, and your drawing and painting endeavors will become a whole lot more fun. All right, let's see. I'm back here. So it looks like I need to make his chin longer. That's fine. This little shadow right here, that falls directly beneath here. Means his chin will come down. Maybe like, yeah, probably this much. Yeah, I was off here. That's where I ran into trouble. Okay. Now, that bit below his chin is directly beneath about here. There. That means this gets a little fuller. Not that much fuller, goodness. All right. See, so you're always comparing what's on the bottom to what's on the top, what's on the left to what's on the right, etc. Okay. Good. Okay. Haven't really attended to this. Let me just fix this. It wouldn't hurt for me to measure a distance like from the bottom of his chin. Let me just fix that chin, man. Let me do this without talking for a second. I'll move this camera out of my way so I can get that right. Yeah, this is down a little farther. Okay. So I'll measure the distance on the original from the bottom of the chin to say here. And then see how this distance goes this way. So I'm just doing that right now from the bottom of the chin to that corner of his eyebrow is the same distance as the tip of his nose. Ah, that's convenient. To just where the hole in his ear begins. So now I go, all right, from there to there. It's the same distance as from there to there. Incidentally, that little thing is directly across from here. So now I know where his ear is. This is super helpful. The bottom of his earlobe is directly across from about here. The top of his ear is across from about there. That means the back of his hair is here, but it comes out, yeah, it's not bad. He's got this, I love this. He very deliberately put in this little patch of white hair on his sideburn right there. Like he obviously went, I am a very distinguished artist, and this will make that more so rather than less so. I think I'm actually going to make his ear wider, and thereby his head wider, because it's getting too long. There we go. All right. It's gotten a little long in here. Because sometimes the width of the outline of the contour can kind of mess with you. Better. All right, so let's see. I'll just kind of lightly do this one over here. This has gotten out of hand over here. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to soften this all a bit. We'll see how this goes. Just fix his hair a little. It's a little much. Okay. So I'm going to take a brush. This is just an old paintbrush, and start softening things. This is sort of a mess up there. And I'm not just indiscriminately blending. I'm also trying to improve my proportions. So I like to start someplace where things don't really matter that much. Foreheads are good places to start because you can sort of make lots of mistakes and figure out what you're doing. This needs to be a little higher over here. It's more like that. And this actually needs to be a little lower. So you're just always, it's just the way it goes. You can get very close to paintings and drawings in the National Gallery, and you can see that the artist is constantly shifting things around. It's easier to tell with drawings because a lot of the drawings that are up in museums weren't really meant to be exhibited on their own. They're just sort of preparatory sketches for a more ambitious painting. So the artist didn't bother to kind of disguise all their mistakes. This, that's all right, but yeah, that needs to come down a little. And don't make the mistake of thinking that some things are more important than others. From a design standpoint, some things are definitely more important than others. But in terms of just working out your proportions, the placement of the hair, the width of the forehead, where you put the ear, all that stuff is just as important as everything else in terms of getting a likeness and getting the expression that you want, and really all the hard parts of this. That's the hard part about drawing, is that everybody's brain is trying to force them to make the eyes too big and the head too big and the feet too small. So you got to really, really struggle to just look objectively at life around you. Oh, I know what's throwing me off. I haven't gotten around to putting his lower eyelid in. Well, this will help. Goodness, there we go. And remember, there are no outlines in real life, right? And so we don't need outlines in our drawings or our paintings. We can have them. I love outlines. I think they're really cool, but they're, they're an abstraction that we are adding to our drawing or our painting because we think they look good, not because we need them to describe where the form is. So make sure that if there's not an outline, that you don't put one in unless you're doing it as a stylistic device to make your drawing better. Let's see if this is here. I've been struggling with this all day long. All right, that's a little bit. So this. Yeah, okay. This I can live with. This has got to move over a little. Now, this is really important. If you take one thing away from this, make it this, that every time you find something where you go, oh, okay, the corner of his mouth here, I just moved it over to my left, right? Every time you find something like that, that's great news. You go, hey, good. I just found a way to improve my drawing. You don't go, oh my gosh, I made another mistake. There's no way to draw without making mistakes. Just look at Michelangelo's drawings and you'll see all those mistakes that he was fixing. You go, oh, this is great. I just found another way to improve this. Not only that, to improve my drawing, but to improve my talent level and ability to draw. So be just headhunting for these little things that you're going to move a little bit. And every time you find one, be excited about it. That means this has to move down a little, and that's starting to make more sense. Okay. So we have 7 more minutes. I don't really have more to that statement. I'm just kind of thinking out loud.
I think we can take questions now, Gavin.
Have you all heard what I've been saying this entire time?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Because I just got a thing that says that the host wanted me to unmute. Okay, give me 2 more minutes to clean this up. And yeah,
Okay.
then we'll take some questions. Okay. Who has questions? What can I answer?
Oh, there's one question from Baltia. What do you spray your charcoal with when you are done?
Oh, fixative. You go to the store and get, I use, want to say it's Krylon's workable fixative.
Mm.
Galvin, when are you going to start using the compressed charcoal?
I'm actually not going to. I'm pretty much done with this for the purposes of our demo. If I worked on it longer, I would probably go as far as I possibly could with this. And then if I wanted some little areas, there aren't a lot of little areas in this particular drawing, but if I wanted to get into really little detail in here, or if I wanted to hatch in a way that I could make this rounder, then I would switch to compressed charcoal.
And how is you're going to press it where you want it the darkest, or do you want to, can you just show just a little bit on here?
Oh,
just
sure.
Whatever.
Yeah, sure. So the two ways that I find this helpful are to shade lightly, because it's hard to shade lightly with vine charcoal. So shading lightly. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then for really small areas, like, so the crease in his eye, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, I'll mess that up a little. And then, okay, so here's the crease above his eyelid. Kind of shows up, and then it's much thinner. And then gets much thicker over here, and then much darker in there. So that's a good place for it, is when you need thin lines and when you need hatching and a little more control.
For your oil painting, do you varnish your oil painting, and when are you going to varnish it? And after the varnish, can you paint on top of it?
Yeah, so when you varnish it, you wait as long as you can, right? So most of my paintings, pretty much as soon as I'm done, I have to either get them to clients or to galleries. But so they make varnish now that you can put on when the painting's dry to the touch. It's called Gamvar. It's made by Gamblin. So when the painting's dry to the touch, then you can put the varnish on. But if you want to work back into it, the varnish comes off really easily with solvent. But you have to take it off. You can't paint on top of the varnish.
Like normally, how long would you take for a painting, Gavin?
It just depends. I mean, I don't have a good answer for that. Sometimes little paintings just take a little while. Sometimes big paintings take a long time. I mean, some of my, you can do a landscape in an afternoon, or you can pour a few months into something in the studio. So it all just depends.
One more question about varnish. The varnish is making the painting more shining. How are there any, the different kinds of varnish, different quality?
Yeah, you can get glossy varnish or matte varnish. Just whatever works for you. Does anybody else have questions?
I have a question. When you go out to sketch for the cityscapes or plein air painting, what material do you use? Use pencil?
Sketchbook and or oil paint.
Oh, so you don't sketch in black and white?
Yeah, in my sketchbook I do. I sketch in a pencil.
Oh, in the pencil. Okay, not
Yeah.
charcoal.
Not usually. It's easier just with a sketchbook. So I'll
Okay.
either just bring my sketchbook and sketch with a pencil, or I'll bring my plein air setup with my easel and palette and all that stuff. Usually both.
Okay. Do you happen to have a sample or something handy? I can.
Do I have what?
Do you happen to have a sample of your sketchbook? If you have.
Yeah, hang on, let me find it. It's around here. I mean, it's just a sketchbook that you buy at Plaza.
Like your sketch in the sketchbook. I'm just curious.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, some of them, yeah, sure, I'll show you. I'll share my screen, just a sec. Yeah, let me see. So some are really, really developed and some are hardly developed at all. So well, so here's one that's really developed.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And then let me find one that is not developed at all. So this I actually did in the studio to figure out how the composition was going to go. But this is the kind of thing that I do in person all the time to get a feel for just the space and the depth and the composition and all that kind of thing.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could you explain a little bit more about your plein air setup, like what you consider really necessary to take along and
yeah. Okay. So let me just switch back to the other camera so that I can look at all of you. Just 1 second. So going out and painting plein air is, for me, really, really rewarding, but it's work. I mean, it's not, it's not like lying down in a hammock with your favorite book and a beer. So I have a plein air easel. And if anybody's interested, I can email you the information on that. It's a great one. And I bring that, my paints, my brushes, paper towels. I try to bring a trash bag, but it doesn't always work. The thing that I'm painting on, it's usually hardboard, but sometimes it's canvas. And then all the little stuff like bug spray and duct tape and Q-tips and suntan lotion, hopefully a bottle of water, but not too much. Because if you're in the city, it's not that easy to like leave your stuff there and go to the bathroom. That can be a huge drag. What else? That's about it. I mean, it's really annoying to get out, to go to wherever you're going and to set up and get rolling and realize you missed something crucial, like you left your brushes at home. So it's important when you're packing not to be listening to a podcast or something like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was just thinking about the practical issues. Yeah, that's always been an issue for me. So thank you. Yeah.
Do you happen to have a recommendation for a good umbrella for, I know you paint a lot of cityscapes.
I'm happy to answer more questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, there are two questions, Gavin. Donald
Oh,
says, which
It just occurred
hardness
to
of
me. Sorry, everybody. The sound was off. I apologize. That happens from time to time. Sorry. So are there more questions?
Oh, yeah, first from Donald, which hardness of pencils do you prefer?
Soft. But lately I've been using medium.
Okay, and then from Catherine, I struggle with basic perspective in cityscapes. Can you recommend an online source to learn the basics?
I'm sure that there are videos on YouTube. I'm sure there are videos on YouTube. Perspective, what I'll say about perspective is that it's not subjective. Perspective is objective. It means you either get it right or you get it wrong. It's not the kind, it's like a scale in music. You're either playing the right notes on the scale or you're not. So look up some YouTube videos, but find ones where the person explains it clearly. If the person is explaining it too geometrically and they're getting too complicated, a lot of people who explain things in art love the sound of their own voice, and they love making things that they explain seem as complicated as humanly possible. The reason for that is that if they're explaining something really complicated, that makes them really smart. So beware of those people always. And find a video that explains things simply, and then the way that you actually start to understand perspective. So the more perspective drawings you do, the more you'll understand it, and then at a certain point it'll click and you'll never think about it again, except in terms of how to have fun with it. Get some shoe boxes and put them up on a table and just draw them from different angles, and draw figure out where eye level is. Draw the vanishing point for the different angles. If you don't know what I mean by that, look it up. The more perspective, start with shoe boxes on a table, and then move to your living room or your bedroom or the outside of your house, and just draw man-made objects with 90-degree angles as